How did a simple Wi-Fi safety fix turn into the moment my son-in-law lost everything he thought he controlled? Why did my password start leaking the week after he touched my router? And how did I let him walk straight into a digital trap he built himself? Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. The kitchen smelled like coffee and something else I couldn't name. Tension, maybe. The kind that builds when people stop saying what they mean and start saying what they think you want to hear. It hung in the air like humidity before a storm, thick and uncomfortable, making every breath feel deliberate. Nolan sat across from me at the table, his laptop open, fingers dancing across the keys like he was conducting an orchestra only he could hear. The clicking was rhythmic, almost hypnotic. My daughter Lena stood behind him, one hand resting on his shoulder, the other holding her phone. She wasn't looking at me. Hadn't been looking at me much lately, actually, not since the wedding. Not since she'd moved into his world and started seeing mine through his eyes. "Dad, seriously, when was the last time you updated your router firmware?" Nolan asked. He didn't look up when he spoke. His eyes stayed fixed on the screen, scanning lines of text I couldn't read from where I sat. "I'm seeing vulnerabilities here that are like 2 years old, maybe 3. This is bad, really bad." I sipped my coffee, let the warmth settle in my chest before responding. "It works fine." That's what everyone says right before they get compromised. He finally glanced at me, and there was something in his eyes I didn't like. Pity, maybe. Or worse, the kind of superiority that comes from thinking you know better than everyone else in the room. Like he was the only one who understood how the world really worked, and the rest of us were just stumbling through it blind. Look, I'm not trying to lecture you. I'm just saying, in my line of work, I see this all the time. Older folks who think they're safe because nothing bad has happened yet. Then one day, boom, identity stolen, bank account drained, whole digital life compromised. Older folks. I was 52. I'd been doing energy audits since before he was born, crawling through basements and attics, checking systems, reading meters, understanding how things connected. I knew how to pay attention, how to notice when something was off. Lena squeezed his shoulder, her wedding ring catching the light. "Nolan's really good at this stuff, Dad. He does network security for a living. He's just trying to help. He helped my friend Hollis last month when she thought her laptop was hacked. Fixed everything in like an hour." "I appreciate that," I said, and I did appreciate it, or at least I wanted to. But something about the way he said it, the way he framed the whole conversation, made my jaw tight, made me feel like I was being managed rather than helped. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "Let me take a look at your setup. Just a quick audit. Won't take long." He closed the laptop halfway, leaning forward like he was about to share a secret. The gesture was practiced, smooth. I wondered how many people he'd convinced with that exact movement, that exact tone. "I can tighten things up, change some passwords, enable WPA3 if your hardware supports it. Basic stuff, standard security protocol. You've got that rental apartment downtown, right? Same network credentials?" "No," I said. "Separate systems." "Smart. Really smart. But still, if someone gets into your home network, they could pivot. Social engineering, phishing, credential stuffing. It's easier than you think. These hackers, they're sophisticated. They don't just go after the obvious targets anymore. They look for weak links, older systems, people who haven't updated their defenses." He tapped the table for emphasis. "That's where you're vulnerable." I didn't know what half of those words meant, but I knew what he was doing. He was framing me as incapable, as someone who needed saving, someone who couldn't be trusted to manage his own affairs. "All right," I said slowly. "What do you need?" His smile was quick, practiced, the kind salesmen use when they know they've made the sale. "Just access to the router. I'll take care of everything. You won't even notice I was here." Lena's face softened, relief washing over her features. "Thanks, Dad. This is really smart. I've been worried about this for a while, honestly. You live alone, and if something happened..." She didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. I knew what she meant. "Your mother's gone. You're getting older. You need someone to look after you." I nodded, but I didn't feel smart. I felt like I'd just agreed to something I didn't fully understand. Like I'd signed a contract without reading the fine print. Nolan stood, stretched, grabbed his laptop. "I'll get my toolkit from the car. This won't take long. Half-hour tops. You just relax. Watch some TV or something." He left the kitchen, and for a moment it was just Lena and me. "He really is trying to help, Dad," she said quietly. "I know he can come across a little intense, but he cares. We both care." I know, I said, but I wasn't sure I did. An hour later, we were in the living room. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. Nolan had the router on the coffee table, his laptop beside it, a tangle of cables connecting the two. It looked complicated, professional. He'd brought a small case with him, filled with tools and adapters I didn't recognize. Lena and my other daughters had arrived while he was working. Mira, my second eldest, was on her phone, scrolling through something, barely paying attention. She'd always been the quiet one, the observer. Iris watched from the armchair, her face unreadable, hands folded in her lap. She noticed things, Iris did, remembered details. Tamsin, the youngest, sat cross-legged on the floor, flipping through a magazine, but I could tell she was listening to every word. Her eyes kept flicking up, watching Nolan's hands move. "Okay, so here's the thing," Nolan said, typing something I couldn't see. His fingers moved fast, confident. "Your current password is way too simple. It's basically an open invitation. I'm going to set up a new one, something stronger. 16 characters, mix of upper and lower case, numbers, special symbols. Impossible to crack with a brute force attack." "Brute force?" I asked. "When hackers just try every possible combination until they get in. It's one of the most common methods. But with a strong password, it would take them literally thousands of years to crack it. You'll be safe." He didn't look at me when he explained. His eyes stayed on the screen. "I'll also create a guest network for visitors, and I'll enable remote management so I can monitor things if anything weird pops up. That way, even if you're not watching, I am, like having a security guard who never sleeps." "Remote management?" I asked, leaning forward slightly. What does that mean exactly?" "It means I can access the router settings from anywhere. Check on things, run diagnostics, update firmware, all remotely. It's just a precaution. If there's ever a breach attempt, some bot probing your network, I can lock things down before it gets out of hand. Before any real damage happens." He glanced up, met my eyes. "Trust me, you'll sleep better knowing someone's keeping an eye on things. My dad had the same setup before he passed. Made him feel a lot more secure." Lena nodded like he'd just solved world hunger. "See? This is what I mean. Nolan thinks ahead. He's always thinking about worst-case scenarios, so we don't have to." I watched him work. His fingers moved across the keyboard with the kind of speed that comes from repetition, from doing something so many times it becomes automatic. He was good at this, I could tell. Competent, skilled. But good at what, exactly? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was watching a magic trick, seeing the flourish, but missing the sleight of hand. "Almost done," he murmured, more to himself than to us. "Just need to configure the firewall settings, set up port forwarding, enable the VPN pass-through." The words washed over me, meaningless. Technical jargon that could mean anything or nothing. I glanced at my daughters. Mira was still on her phone. Iris was watching Nolan's screen, but her expression hadn't changed. Tamsin had stopped pretending to read the magazine. "Done," Nolan announced after a few more minutes. He unplugged the cables, coiled them neatly, and set the router back on the shelf where it lived. The lights blinked in sequence, green, amber, green. "And Kai, you're all set. New password, new security protocols, everything locked down tight, fortress-level protection." "What's the new password?" I asked. He rattled off a string of letters and numbers that I immediately forgot. "I'll text it to you in a minute, but honestly, you shouldn't need to touch the settings anymore. I'll handle updates remotely. Completely hands-off on your end. Simple." "Great," I said. I didn't feel great. He packed his toolkit, zipped it closed, and stood. "If you notice anything weird, anything at all, just let me know. I'm monitoring the network now, so I'll probably catch it before you do. But still, better safe than sorry." "Thanks," I said. "That's what family's for." He clapped me on the shoulder, the gesture firm, possessive. "We look out for each other." After they left, after the chorus of goodbyes and the sound of cars pulling away, I sat in the living room alone. The house settled into its evening quiet, the kind of silence that feels heavy after voices have filled it. The refrigerator hummed from the kitchen. The clock on the wall ticked steadily. The heating system clicked on, warm air whispering through the vents. I looked at the router, that little black box with its blinking lights. 3 lights, arranged in a row. Power, internet, admin. The first 2 blinked in their usual rhythm, quick and regular. But the admin light, the small amber one on the left, seemed different, slower, more deliberate. I got up, walked over, and crouched down to eye level. Stared at it. Counted the intervals between blinks. 1 second, 2 seconds, blink. 1 second, 2 seconds, blink. Had it always done that? I couldn't remember. Maybe it had. Maybe I'd never paid attention before, but now I was paying attention. I stayed there for a long time, watching that light blink in the growing darkness. The sun had set completely, and I hadn't turned on any lamps. The room was lit only by the glow from the router, from the streetlight outside, from the thin sliver of moon visible through the window. Something didn't sit right. I couldn't name it, couldn't point to a specific detail and say, that's wrong. But the feeling was there, solid and undeniable. Like standing in your own house and sensing that someone had moved something while you were gone. Everything looked the same, but the air felt different. I stood, knees creaking slightly, and went to the kitchen. Made myself a sandwich I didn't really want, ate it standing at the counter, washed the plate, dried it, put it away. Then I went to bed, but I didn't sleep for a long time. I lay there in the dark, listening to the house, thinking about Nolan's hands on my router, his fingers flying across the keyboard, that practiced smile. Trust me, he'd said, you'll sleep better. The cafe on 5th was the kind of place where people went to be alone together. Small round tables, weak amber lighting, exposed brick walls covered in local art that nobody really looked at. The hiss of the espresso machine provided a steady backdrop of white noise, covering up whatever conversation you didn't want overheard. I sat in my usual corner spot, back to the wall, facing the door. Old habit. The coffee was black and strong, the newspaper in front of me was 2 days old, and I wasn't reading a word of it. My phone buzzed against the table. Group chat, family only. I picked it up, unlocked the screen, and read the message. Lena. Dad, we need to talk about the apartment. I read it twice, the words not quite sinking in the first time. Took a sip of coffee, bitter and hot. Set the cup down carefully, waited. The typing indicator appeared. 3 dots. Pulsing. Lena. Nolan and I have been talking, and we really think it makes sense for us to take it over. You don't need 2 properties. I stared at the screen. Around me, the cafe continued its rhythm. The barista called out a name. Someone laughed. A chair scraped against the floor. But it all felt distant, muffled, like I was underwater. Mira. That's a big ask, Lena. Lena. Not really. Dad already has the house. We're trying to start a family. It's about fairness. Fairness. That word sat heavy in my chest. The apartment downtown wasn't just property. It was income, security. It was what I'd saved for when the girls were in middle school, what I'd bought with your mother during that good year when the auditing contracts were steady and we could finally see a path forward. We talked about retirement, about having something stable, something that would generate money even when we couldn't work anymore. Iris. Has Dad even agreed to this? Lena. I'm asking now. Tamsin. This feels rushed. Lena. It's not rushed, it's practical. Nolan says it's inefficient for Dad to manage 2 places at his age. The stress isn't good for him, and we need somewhere to grow into, at my age. There it was again, that casual dismissal, wrapped in concern, delivered like it was self-evident truth. I was 52. I ran energy audits that required crawling through crawl spaces and climbing onto roofs. I managed the apartment just fine. Marla, the property manager, handled the day-to-day. I collected rent, approved maintenance, kept the books balanced. But in Nolan's world, apparently, that was too much for someone like me. I picked up the phone, hesitated with my thumbs over the keyboard, thought about what to say, how to say it without starting a war. Asher. We can talk about it. Lena. Thank you. I knew you'd understand. I didn't understand, not even close, but I knew better than to argue in a group chat. Some conversations needed to happen face-to-face, where you could see expressions, read body language, hear the tone beneath the words. I set the phone down and went back to pretending to read the newspaper. The headline was about a water shortage 2 counties over. I read the same sentence 3 times without absorbing any of it. Around me, life continued. A couple at the next table was arguing in hushed voices about whose turn it was to pick up their kid. A man in a suit was typing furiously on his laptop, phone wedged between his shoulder and ear. The barista was wiping down the counter with slow, methodical circles. I finished my coffee, left a tip, and walked home. The afternoon was cold, the kind of autumn chill that cuts through a jacket and makes you walk faster. Leaves skittered across the sidewalk, blown by a wind that smelled like rain. That night, I was in the kitchen making dinner, nothing fancy. Chicken breast, rice, steamed broccoli, the kind of simple meal you make when you're cooking for one and don't want leftovers. The radio played quietly on the counter, some talk show I wasn't listening to. My phone buzzed again. I wiped my hands on a towel and picked it up, expecting another group chat message. It wasn't. Security alert. Password reset requested for asher.calderostreamlink.net. If this wasn't you, click here immediately. I stared at the notification, read it again. My pulse ticked up, a slow, steady acceleration like a car gaining speed on a highway. I hadn't requested a password reset. I clicked the link, fingers moving on autopilot. The browser opened to my email provider's security page. I reset the password, made it something new, something random, 16 characters of gibberish that I wrote down on a sticky note and tucked into my wallet. Then I checked my email login history. The page loaded. A list of login attempts, each with a timestamp and an IP address. 2 attempts, both from today. Both unsuccessful because the old password hadn't worked. Both from inside my house. 192.1168.1.1, my home network. I set the phone down slowly, carefully, like it might explode if I moved too fast. My mind was racing, connecting dots, following threads. Nolan, the router, remote management. I'll keep an eye on things. I walked to the living room, leaving the chicken to finish cooking, and crouched down in front of the router again. The lights were still blinking. Power, internet, admin. The same rhythm as before. 1 second, 2 seconds, blink. I didn't touch it, not yet. But I took out my phone and started taking pictures. The router from every angle. The model number on the bottom, the serial code on the back, the blinking lights, the placement on the shelf, documentation, evidence, even if I didn't know what I was documenting yet. I went back to the kitchen, plated the food, and sat at the table. Ate mechanically, tasting nothing. The chicken could have been cardboard, the rice could have been sand. When I was done, I washed the dishes, dried them, put them away. Then I went to my office and opened my laptop. Started a new document. Timeline of events. And I began to write. My home office was small, barely big enough for a desk, a chair, and a filing cabinet, but it was mine. I'd set it up in what used to be a storage room off the hallway, painted the walls a calm gray, installed good lighting, and made it a place where I could think. The door had a lock. I kept it closed most of the time, not because I had anything to hide, but because I liked the quiet, the isolation, the ability to focus without interruption. I sat at the desk with the router manual open in front of me. Old habits. I'd always been the kind of person who read the instructions, who checked twice before committing to anything. My daughters used to tease me about it, Lena especially. "Dad, nobody reads the manual anymore," she'd say, laughing. "You just figure it out as you go." But I wasn't wired that way. I needed to understand how things worked, what each button did, what each setting controlled. It was the same instinct that made me good at energy audits. You couldn't fix a system until you understood it completely. The manual was dense, full of technical jargon that I had to parse slowly, sentence by sentence. But I'd always been patient, good at breaking complex information into manageable pieces. I found what I was looking for on page 14. Admin access profiles. Your router supports multiple administrator accounts. To add a new admin user, navigate to Settings, User Management, Create Profile. Each admin profile has full access to all router functions, including remote management capabilities. I read it 3 times. Then I logged into the router settings from my laptop. Used the new password Nolan had texted me. A string of random characters that looked like someone had rolled their face across a keyboard. Capital K, lowercase r, number 9, exclamation point, lowercase m. I typed it carefully, double-checking each character. The dashboard loaded. Clean, organized, everything color-coded in blues and greens. Tabs across the top. Status, wireless, security, advanced, tools. I clicked on User Management, and there, under the list of administrator profiles, I saw it. 2 entries. Admin, primary. Created, March 2022. Status, active. N. Reeves, remote. Created, 6 days ago. Status, active. Remote access. Enabled, permissions, full. I stared at the screen. Read the name again. N.R. Reeves, Nolan Reeves. Remote access enabled. Full permissions. Created 6 days ago, which was exactly when he'd secured my Wi-Fi. He'd given himself access. Not guest access, not limited monitoring. Full administrative control over my network, my devices, potentially my accounts, my files, my entire digital life. I didn't slam the laptop shut. Didn't curse. Didn't call him. I just sat there, hands flat on the desk, breathing slowly through my nose. In for 4 counts, out for 4 counts. The meditation technique I'd learned years ago when the stress of single parenting had threatened to overwhelm me. This wasn't anger, not yet. It was clarity. The fog lifting, revealing the landscape beneath. He'd lied, or at minimum, he'd misled me. I'll monitor things, he'd said. Not, I'll give myself complete control over your network without your explicit consent. I stood up, walked to the hallway closet where I kept old electronics. Boxes of cables, outdated phones, a tablet with a cracked screen I'd been meaning to recycle. And there, on the bottom shelf, the router I'd replaced 2 years ago when I'd upgraded my internet speed. I pulled it out, blew off the dust, and carried it back to the office. Set it on the desk beside the current one. The old router still worked. Still had all my previous settings backed up in its memory. I took more pictures. The admin profile page, the permissions list, the creation date, the IP address log showing access attempts. Then I opened a new document on my laptop and started writing again. Timeline expanded. Day 1, 6 days ago. Nolan offers to secure Wi-Fi. Uses language implying I'm incapable due to age. Makes changes to router settings in living room while family present. Creates admin profile for himself, NREV's remote, with full permissions and remote access capability. Does not inform me of this profile's creation. Day 6, yesterday. First password reset attempt on primary email account. 2 login attempts from internal IP address. 192.168.1.1 home network. Both unsuccessful. Day 7, today. Group chat initiated by Lena requesting transfer of downtown apartment. Language frames request as practical and fair. Nolan's influence visible in phrasing. Inefficient for dad to manage 2 places at his age. Suggestion that my current arrangement represents unfair resource hoarding. Day 7, evening. Security alert for email password reset. Reset completed. Login history reveals 2 attempts from home network. I wrote it all down. Names, dates, times, exact quotes from the group chat. I took screenshots of everything. The admin profile, the login attempts, the text messages. Everything got saved, backed up to 3 different locations. External hard drive, cloud storage, USB stick in my desk drawer. When I was done, I printed the admin profile page. The one showing NREV's remote with full permissions. I printed it twice, put 1 copy in a folder, took the other and circled Nolan's name with a red pen. Once, just once. Then I sat back and thought about what came next. The electronics store was bright and loud, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, pop music playing too loud from speakers I couldn't see, aisles of televisions all showing the same football game on slightly different delays, creating a weird echo effect. People wandered with shopping carts, looking lost, while salespeople in blue vests tried to upsell them on warranties and premium cables. I found the networking aisle and picked out a router that looked identical to the one I had at home. Same brand, same model, same little black box with the same configuration of lights. The price tag said it was last year's model, marked down because newer versions existed, but that was fine. Better, even. Meant it would be compatible with everything I already had. I paid cash, didn't want a record of the purchase on my credit card. The cashier, a kid who couldn't have been more than 20, barely looked at me as he scanned the box. Need the extended warranty? He asked, voice flat with the boredom of someone who'd asked that question 10,000 times. No thanks. Installation service? We can send someone out. I'm good. He shrugged, finished the transaction, and handed me the bag. Have a nice day. At home, I took the new router to the guest room upstairs, the one that used to be Iris's before she moved out. I'd been using it for storage mostly. Boxes of old tax returns, seasonal decorations, winter clothes packed in plastic bins. I cleared space on the desk and set up the new router, connected it to the separate internet line I'd had installed years ago when I was working from home more frequently. The installation was straightforward. Power cable, Ethernet cable, wait for the lights to cycle through their startup sequence. When it was running, I logged into its admin panel and started configuring the settings. Mirrored everything from my main router. Same network name, same password structure, same security protocols. A perfect duplicate. Then I disabled the broadcast. Made the network invisible to anyone casually scanning for Wi-Fi signals. You'd have to know it existed to find it. A decoy, a parallel system, insurance. When I was satisfied everything worked, I locked the guest room door and pocketed the key. That afternoon, I called Elliot Brandt. Elliot and I went back 20 years, to when he was still doing technology consulting before he shifted into cybersecurity law. We'd worked together on a municipal energy audit, evaluating the city's network infrastructure, checking for inefficiencies and security gaps. He was sharp, methodical, the kind of person who thought 3 moves ahead in every conversation. "Asher," he said when he picked up. His voice was warm but professional. "It's been a while. How are you holding up?" We hadn't spoken much since my wife's funeral. He'd sent flowers, a card with a handwritten note that I'd kept in my desk drawer. "I've been better," I said. "I need advice. Legal advice." The warmth in his voice shifted, became focused. "I'm listening." I told him everything. The router situation, the admin profile, the password attempts, the group chat about the apartment, Nolan's constant implications that I was too old, too incompetent, too much of a liability to manage my own affairs. I laid it out chronologically, precisely, the way I'd written it in my timeline. He didn't interrupt, didn't ask questions, just listened with the kind of attention that made you feel heard. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line, the faint sound of traffic in the background. He was probably in his car. "You're documenting everything?" he finally asked. "Yes, screenshots, timestamps, login logs, all of it." "Good. Keep doing that. This is important, Asher. You need an airtight record, dates, times, specific actions, every piece of evidence you can gather." "What's the line?" I asked. "Legally. Where does this cross from annoying to illegal?" Unauthorized access to a computer system is a federal offense under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. If he's using that admin profile to access your accounts, your files, anything beyond basic network maintenance, that's a crime. The law is actually pretty clear on this. The problem is proving intent. I have login attempts from my own network to my email account, right after he got access to my router. That's a pattern. That's good, but you need more. You need to demonstrate that it wasn't accidental, that there was a deliberate effort to gain unauthorized access for a specific purpose. "The apartment," I said. "Probably. If he was trying to access your property management accounts, your financial records, anything related to that apartment, that establishes motive. That's what we need." "So what do I do?" "Keep gathering evidence. Don't confront him. Don't tip your hand. Let him think everything is normal. If he's monitoring your network, act like you don't notice. And if you can, create an opportunity for him to make another attempt. Something you can document clearly. You want me to set a trap? I want you to give him enough rope." Elliot's voice was calm, measured. "But Asher, you need to be ready for the fallout. If you pursue this, if we take legal action, it's going to get ugly. This isn't just some stranger. This is your son-in-law, your daughter's husband. When this comes out, it's going to affect your whole family." "I know," I said quietly. "Do you? Really?" His tone softened. "I've seen cases like this before. Families that never recover, relationships that break permanently. You're not just exposing what he's been doing. You're showing Lena that the man she married is capable of this. That's a heavy thing to put on someone." I closed my eyes, saw Lena's face the day of her wedding. The joy, the hope, the absolute certainty that she'd found the right person. "What's the alternative?" I asked. "Let him take the apartment? Let him have access to everything I own? Where does it end?" "It probably doesn't," Elliot said. "People like this, they don't stop. They escalate. Today it's the apartment. Tomorrow it's your bank accounts, your retirement funds, your medical decisions. They find ways to take control, piece by piece, until you're completely dependent on them." "Then I don't have a choice." "You always have a choice. But I understand what you're saying. And if you're committed to this, I'll help you. I'll draft a memo outlining the legal framework. If it escalates to actual charges, we'll have a roadmap. But Asher," he paused, "be careful. People like Nolan don't take losing well. When he realizes what's happening, he's going to fight back. He's going to make you the villain. He's going to tell everyone you're paranoid, unstable, that you're making things up. And some people will believe him." "Let them," I said. "All right." I could hear the respect in his voice. "I'll get started on the documentation. Keep me updated on anything new. And Asher, don't do this alone. Make sure someone else knows what's happening. Someone who can back you up if things go sideways." "I will." We hung up, and I sat in my office for a long time, staring at the wall. That night, just after 10, my phone buzzed with a text. "Nolan." "Hey, noticed some weird traffic on your network earlier. Ran a diagnostic remotely. Everything's fine now. Looks like it was just a firmware glitch. Already patched it. Just FYI, I read it 3 times. Weird traffic. He was monitoring me, actively. Watching what I did online, where I went, what I accessed. and he was telling me about it like it was a normal thing, like I should be grateful for his vigilance. I typed a response, kept it simple. Asher, thanks for keeping an eye on things. Nolan, no problem. That's what family's for. Sleep well. I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. Family. The word felt hollow now. Corrupted. Turned into something it wasn't supposed to be. The notary's office smelled like old paper and mint. One of those combination scents that probably came from an air freshener plugged into a wall outlet somewhere, trying to mask decades of document storage with something vaguely pleasant. The walls were lined with filing cabinets, each drawer labeled with years and categories. Ms. Delacroix sat behind a desk that looked older than I was, wearing reading glasses on a chain and a cardigan despite the office being uncomfortably warm. She was in her 60s, efficient and no-nonsense, the kind of person who'd seen every trick in the book and had stopped being impressed decades ago. I'd used her services before when I bought the apartment, and she'd remembered me immediately when I called. Mr. Calder, she said, sliding the property deed across the desk. Her handwriting was immaculate, each letter perfectly formed. Everything's in order. The apartment is solely in your name. No co-signers, no liens, no encumbrances of any kind. Clean title. I want to make sure that's documented, I said. Clearly. Irrevocably. I want multiple copies filed in multiple locations. She raised an eyebrow, studied me over her glasses. Expecting trouble? Preparing for it. She nodded slowly, made a note on a legal pad. I'll file an updated copy with the county clerk's office. I'll also prepare a notarized statement affirming sole ownership and your right to refuse any transfer or sale without your explicit written consent. If anyone tries to claim otherwise, they'll have a very difficult time. How difficult? They'd need to prove fraud, coercion, or incompetence. And even then, with proper documentation, it would be nearly impossible. She tapped the deed with one finger. This is your property, Mr. Calder. No one can take it from you without your permission, period. I felt some of the tension leave my shoulders. Thank you. Is there anything else you need? Power of attorney documentation? A will review? Not right now, but I might need those soon. She nodded, understanding more than I'd said. I'm here when you're ready. And Mr. Calder, whatever you're dealing with, you're doing the right thing by being proactive. Most people wait until it's too late. I left with 3 certified copies of the deed, each one stamped and signed, each one proof that the apartment was mine and mine alone. Back home, I created a new filing system. Everything related to the situation went into a dedicated folder. Physical documents in a locked drawer, digital files encrypted and backed up, the property deed, the timeline, the screenshots, the ISP confirmation logs I'd requested under the guise of checking for service outages. Then I did something I knew was risky. I logged into the apartment's network settings, accessed them through the property management portal that Marla used, and changed the Wi-Fi credentials. Made them simple, predictable, something someone like Nolan might guess if he was looking. The new password was Calder 2024, my last name and the current year. Easy to remember. Easy to crack if you had basic information about the owner. Bait, I left it like that and waited. 3 days later, Lena called. Not texted, called, which meant she wanted something and knew a text wouldn't work. Hey, Dad, she said when I answered. Her voice was bright, forced. How are you? I'm fine. You? Good. Really good. Listen, I wanted to invite you over for dinner this Sunday. Just family. Nothing fancy. I'm making lasagna. Your mother's recipe, I thought, but didn't say. The one Lena had learned from her, the one that took all day to prepare because you made the sauce from scratch. Sounds nice, I said. Great. Come around 5. And Dad? She hesitated. I know we've been asking a lot about the apartment. I just want you to know, we're not trying to pressure you. We're trying to plan for the future, trying to build something. I understand, I said. Do you? Because sometimes I feel like you think we're being greedy, like we want to take something from you. I don't think that. Good, because we're not. We just want what's fair. There was that word again. Fair. As if life came with a cosmic ledger that balanced everything out, as if what I'd earned and saved and built somehow didn't belong to me because I already had enough. I'll see you Sunday, I said. After we hung up, I checked my phone, opened the property management app, looked at the apartment's network logs, and there it was. 1 access attempt, failed login. Tried 3 times with variations of common passwords before giving up. The IP address matched Nolan's phone. I screenshotted everything, added it to the file, updated the timeline. Day 10. Apartment Wi-Fi credentials changed to simple password. Access attempt logged. 3 failed login attempts from IP address registered to Nolan's mobile device. Time, 11:47 p.m. He was getting bolder, or more desperate. Either way, he was walking exactly where I needed him to walk. Sunday arrived cold and gray, the kind of day that makes you want to stay inside with tea and a book. I drove to Lena and Nolan's house in the late afternoon, took the route through downtown so I could pass by the apartment. It looked the same as always. Red brick, black trim, flower boxes on the windows that the tenants kept filled with seasonal plants. A good building. Well-maintained, worth keeping. Lena's house was in one of the newer developments on the east side, all identical facades and landscaped yards. I parked on the street, grabbed the bottle of wine I'd brought, and walked up the path. Nolan answered the door before I could knock. "Asher, come in, come in." He clapped me on the shoulder, the gesture firm, familiar, like we were old friends. "Lena's in the kitchen. We're just finishing up. Perfect timing." The house smelled amazing. Tomato sauce, garlic, basil, baked cheese. I followed him inside, set the wine on the counter, and found Lena pulling the lasagna out of the oven. "Dad!" She set the dish down, pulled off her oven mitts, and hugged me. "I'm so glad you came." "Wouldn't miss it," I said. The dining room table was set for 6. Lena and Nolan, me, and my 3 other daughters, who arrived within minutes of each other. Mira brought salad, Iris brought bread, Tamsin brought dessert, some kind of chocolate cake she'd made from a recipe she'd found online. We sat, we ate, we talked. It felt almost normal, almost like the dinners we used to have when they were younger, when their mother was still alive and the table was always full and loud. But underneath the conversation, I could feel the current, the unspoken thing we were all dancing around. Nolan's laptop sat on the side table, closed but present. He glanced at it twice during dinner. After we finished eating, after the plates were cleared and the coffee was poured, he got up and brought it to the table. "So," he said, glancing at Lena, then at me. "We wanted to talk about the apartment." Here it was. "Sure," I said. Lena folded her hands on the table, the gesture almost prayerful. "We've been thinking a lot about this, Dad, about our future, about starting a family, about having space to grow, and the apartment, it's perfect for what we need. It's close to Nolan's work, it's in a good neighborhood, and honestly, you don't need it." "It generates income," I said calmly. "Barely," Nolan said. He opened the laptop, pulled up a spreadsheet. I ran the numbers. After taxes, maintenance, property management fees, you're clearing what, maybe $800 a month? That's nothing. You could make more investing that equity. It's stable income. It's inefficient. He turned the laptop so I could see the screen. Rows of numbers, columns of data, everything color-coded. And managing tenants at your age, dealing with maintenance calls, emergency repairs, that's stress you don't need. You should be relaxing, enjoying retirement. I'm not retired. Not yet. But you're what, 52? How much longer are you going to climb into attics and crawl through basements? His tone was reasonable, concerned. You need to start thinking about the next phase, downsizing, simplifying. Lena leaned forward. "We're not asking for a handout, Dad. We're asking for something fair. You've had your turn. You built your life. Now let us build ours." I looked around the table. Mira was staring at her coffee. Iris was watching Nolan's screen, her expression unreadable. Tamsin looked uncomfortable, like she wanted to be anywhere else. "I earned that property," I said quietly. "With your mother. It's not about fairness. It's about what we built together, what I'm still building." "And we're trying to build something too," Nolan said. His tone was sharper now, the reasonable facade starting to crack. "But we can't do that if you're holding on to things you don't need, things that would make a real difference in our lives but are just sitting there making you a few $100 a month. It's more than money." "Then what is it? Sentimentality? Control?" He closed the laptop. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're prioritizing your past over our future." The room went silent. Lena's eyes were shining. "Dad, please. We're not trying to hurt you. We're trying to move forward. And we can't do that if you won't help us." I took a breath, let it out slowly. "I'll think about it." "Think fast," Nolan said. "Opportunities don't wait. There's another property we're looking at, but the apartment would be perfect. Better location, better price. But if you're not willing to work with us, we'll have to go another route." "Then go another route," I said. His jaw tightened. Lena put a hand on his arm. "Let's not do this now," she said quietly. "It's supposed to be a nice dinner." But the damage was done. The rest of the evening was strained, conversation forced, everyone pretending the argument hadn't happened. I left early, made an excuse about being tired, and drove home in silence. At 11:43 p.m., my phone buzzed. Security alert from the apartment system. Access attempt logged. I opened the app. Someone had tried to access the property management portal. Used the old credentials, the ones I'd changed 3 days ago. Failed. Tried again with a variation. Failed again. The IP address matched the one from before. Nolan's phone. But this time, there was more. He'd also tried to access the router settings. Tried to enable remote management. Tried to create an admin profile. All of it failed because I'd changed everything after the last attempt. But the attempts were there. Documented. Time-stamped. Undeniable. I took screenshots. Updated the timeline. Sent everything to Elliot. Then I texted Lena. Asher. We need to have a family meeting, all of us, next Saturday, my house. She responded almost immediately. Lena. Is this about the apartment? Asher. It's about honesty. She didn't respond after that. The week passed slowly. I went through my normal routine, audits during the day, quiet evenings at home, morning coffee at the cafe on 5th. But everything felt different now, heightened, like I was watching my own life from a distance, waiting for something to break. I didn't hear from Lena. The group chat was silent. Mira texted once to ask if I was okay. Iris called to ask what the meeting was about. I told her she'd find out Saturday. Tamsin didn't reach out at all. Elliot sent me a draft of his legal memo, 20 pages outlining the relevant statutes, case precedents, potential charges, Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, unauthorized access, identity theft. The language was dense, clinical, but the message was clear. What Nolan had done was illegal. Provably so. Keep this somewhere safe, Elliot wrote in his email. And Asher, make sure you're ready. Once we present this, there's no going back. I printed 3 copies. Put one in my office safe. One in a safety deposit box at the bank. One in an envelope addressed to my attorney with instructions to open it if anything happened to me. Paranoid? Maybe. But I'd learned to be careful. Friday night, I got a call from Marla, the property manager for the apartment. Mr. Calder? Sorry to bother you so late. I wanted to flag something unusual. What's going on? Someone's been trying to access the management portal. Multiple attempts over the past week, different passwords, but always targeting your account specifically. Our system locked them out after 3 tries, but I thought you should know. Do you have the IP addresses? Yeah, I can send them over. You think it's someone trying to hack you? Something like that. Send me everything you have. And Marla? Change all the administrative passwords. Make them random. Don't use anything predictable. Already done. I also enabled 2-factor authentication on your account. You'll get a text code whenever someone tries to log in. Perfect, thank you. No problem. Stay safe, Mr. Calder. I hung up and immediately checked my email. Marla's report was already there, 3 separate IP addresses. One matched Nolan's phone, one matched his laptop, one I didn't recognize but would bet money was some kind of proxy or VPN he was using to hide his identity. He was escalating, getting desperate. Good. Saturday morning, I cleaned the house. Not because it was dirty, but because I needed something to do with my hands. Vacuumed the living room. Dusted the shelves. Arranged chairs around the coffee table. At 2 p.m., Elliot arrived. He was wearing a suit, carrying a briefcase, looking every inch the lawyer. We shook hands, and he followed me inside. How are you holding up? He asked. I've been better. This is going to be hard. You know that. I know. He set his briefcase on the table, pulled out folders. I've got everything organized. Timeline, evidence, legal framework. When they get here, I'll walk them through it step by step. Professional, clinical, no emotion. And if he denies it, he will. They always do. But the evidence speaks for itself. Elliot met my eyes. Are you sure you want to do this? Once we start, there's no taking it back. I'm sure. At 3 p.m., they started arriving. Mira first, looking nervous. Then Iris, calm and watchful. Tamsin came next, hugging herself like she was cold even though the house was warm. Lena and Nolan arrived last. They walked in together, her hand in his, and I saw immediately that he'd prepared her. Her face was set, defensive. His was confident, almost smug. They thought they knew what this was about. They thought they were ready. They weren't. Everyone settled into the living room, Mira and Iris on the couch, Tamsin in the armchair, Lena and Nolan on the love seat, still holding hands. Elliot stood near the fireplace, briefcase open, folders arranged on the mantel. I stood near the router, the one Nolan had fixed weeks ago. The room was quiet except for the ticking of the clock and the distant hum of the refrigerator. Thank you for coming, I said. My voice was steady, calmer than I felt. I know this is unusual. I know some of you are wondering why I asked you here. The answer is simple. We need to talk about trust, about boundaries, about what happens when someone crosses lines they shouldn't cross. Lena shifted uncomfortably. Dad, if this is about the apartment? It's not. I looked at Nolan. Not exactly. He met my gaze, his expression neutral. Then what's this about? 6 weeks ago, you offered to secure my Wi-Fi. Do you remember? Of course. And I did. I made your network safer. You did more than that. I walked to the router, unplugged it, and set it on the coffee table between us. You created a second administrator account. Full access. Remote management. Without telling me. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Nolan's face didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Calculation. That's standard procedure for monitoring. I told you I'd keep an eye on things. You told me you'd monitor for security threats. You didn't tell me you'd create a hidden profile with full administrative privileges. It's not hidden. It's right there in the settings. Settings you knew I wouldn't check. Settings you assumed I was too old or too incompetent to understand. Dad, what are you talking about? Lena's voice was rising. Nolan was helping you. I pulled out my laptop, opened it, and turned the screen so everyone could see. The admin profile page. N. Reeves, remote, full permissions, created 6 weeks ago. This, I said, is what helping looks like to your husband. Nolan leaned forward, glanced at the screen, and shrugged. Like I said, standard monitoring protocol. Every IT professional does this. It's how we keep systems secure. Then why didn't you tell me? I didn't think I needed to. It's technical stuff. Back-end administration. Not something end users typically worry about. End users. I let the phrase hang in the air. Is that what I am to you? An end user who doesn't need to know what's happening on his own network? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Elliot stepped forward. Perhaps I can clarify the legal context here. Mr. Reeves, creating an administrative account on someone else's network without their explicit informed consent is, at minimum, a violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. If that access is then used to attempt unauthorized entry into other systems, it becomes a federal crime. Nolan's confident expression cracked slightly. I didn't access anything unauthorized. Didn't you? I pulled up the email login history. 2 days after you set up that profile, someone tried to reset my email password. Twice. From my home network, from an IP address that traces directly to your device. That wasn't me. Then who was it? I don't know. Maybe your network was already compromised. Maybe that's why I was seeing weird traffic. Or maybe you were the weird traffic. Lena stood up, her face pale. This is insane. You're accusing Nolan of hacking you, my husband, your son-in-law? I'm not accusing. I'm presenting evidence. I pulled up Marla's report. 3 days ago, someone tried to access my apartment's property management portal. Multiple attempts, different password combinations. The attempts came from 3 different IP addresses, but all of them trace back to devices registered to Nolan. That's impossible, Nolan said, but his voice was less certain now. Is it? I turned to Elliot. Tell them about the laptop. Elliot pulled a document from his folder. We subpoenaed the ISP records. With a warrant, we can trace every access attempt, every login, every search. The pattern is clear and consistent. Mr. Reeves has been systematically attempting to gain access to Mr. Calder's digital assets, including but not limited to email accounts, property management systems, financial records, and network devices. This is harassment, Nolan said, standing now. You can't just accuse me of crimes without proof. I have proof. I gestured to the laptop, to the folders on the mantel, to the timeline I'd printed and laminated. Weeks of documentation, screenshots, IP logs, timestamps, everything you've done, cataloged and cross-referenced. Mira spoke for the first time, her voice quiet. Why would he do that? The apartment, Iris said, understanding dawning on her face. He wanted control of it. Not just the apartment, I said. He wanted to prove I was incompetent, too old, too out of touch, too vulnerable. If he could access my accounts, if he could show that I wasn't managing things properly, he could make a case that I needed help, that I needed someone to take over. Lena was shaking her head, tears starting. No, that's not true. Nolan was helping. He's always helping. He was manipulating, I said gently. You too, Lena. Look at how the conversation about the apartment started. Right after he got access to my network, right after he tried to get into my email. The timing isn't coincidental. You set him up, Nolan said suddenly. His face was red now, anger replacing the confidence. That simple password on the apartment network. You changed it on purpose. You wanted me to try to access it. I changed my own password on my own property. What you did with that information was your choice. This is entrapment. Elliot shook his head. Entrapment requires law enforcement to induce a crime that wouldn't otherwise occur. Mr. Calder is a private citizen protecting his own assets. What you did of your own volition. I was trying to help. By stealing my passwords, by trying to access my financial records. I wasn't stealing anything. Then what were you doing at 11:47 p.m. last Saturday, trying to log into my apartment's management portal? The room went silent again. Even Nolan had no answer for that. I walked to my desk, pulled out the final folder, and handed it to him. This is every access attempt you've made, every login, every search. Every time you use that admin profile to monitor my activity, it's all here. He took the folder, opened it, and his face went white as he flipped through the pages. How did you... I'm not as incompetent as you thought, I said. I'm not too old to understand technology. I'm not too naive to recognize manipulation. And I'm not going to let you take what I've built. Lena was crying openly now. Nolan, tell him he's wrong. Tell him this is all a misunderstanding. Nolan stared at the folder in his hands. Said nothing. Tell him. Still nothing. She turned to me, desperate. Dad, please. He made a mistake. People make mistakes. You can't destroy our marriage over this. I'm not destroying your marriage, I said softly. I'm protecting myself. What you do with this information is your choice. What do you want? Nolan asked finally. His voice was hollow. An apology? Money? For me to disappear? I want you to relinquish all access to my network, my accounts, and my property, immediately. Fine. And I want you to understand that if you ever try something like this again, I will press charges. Federal charges. Do you understand? He nodded, jaw clenched. Elliot cleared his throat. I'll need that in writing, a formal statement acknowledging the unauthorized access and agreeing to cease all such activity. I'll draft it tonight. You can sign it Monday. Whatever, Nolan muttered. I looked at Lena. She was staring at her husband like she'd never seen him before. I'm sorry, I said to her. I really am. She didn't respond. Just stood there, tears streaming down her face, her whole world shifting beneath her feet. Nolan grabbed his laptop and walked toward the door. Stopped, turned back. You think you've won? He said. But you just lost your daughter. No, I said quietly. You did that yourself. He left. The door didn't slam this time. It closed with a soft click that somehow felt worse. The silence after Nolan left was oppressive. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside, a car drove past. Lena stood in the middle of the room, her arms wrapped around herself, shaking slightly. Mira got up and went to her, put an arm around her shoulders, but Lena shrugged it off. Don't, she said. Her voice was raw. Just don't. Lena, I started. How long? She interrupted. How long have you been planning this? Weeks? Months? Sitting there documenting everything, building your case, waiting to humiliate him in front of everyone? I wasn't trying to humiliate him. I was trying to protect myself. By destroying my marriage? By stopping him from taking advantage of me. Of us. Lena, he was accessing my accounts. Trying to get into my property management system, planning to take the apartment. The apartment you wouldn't give us anyway. Her voice cracked. We asked. We explained why we needed it. And you just said no, like we were children asking for candy. Like what we wanted didn't matter. That's not fair. Fair? She laughed, bitter and sharp. You want to talk about fair. You have 2 properties, Dad. 2. We have nothing. We're trying to start a family, trying to build a life, and you're sitting on assets you don't even need. I earned those assets. And we're supposed to what? Start from zero. Work twice as hard because you already took everything for yourself. Lena, Iris said gently, that's not what's happening here. Isn't it? Lena turned on her. He's using this whole thing as an excuse. Oh, Nolan tried to access my network, so now I can't trust anyone, so I'm keeping everything. It's manipulation, just a different kind. He tried to hack Dad's email, Mira said. Multiple times. That's not asking for help. That's not even being pushy. That's criminal. He made a mistake. A mistake he repeated, over and over. Following a plan, targeting specific accounts. That's not a mistake, Lena. That's deliberate. You don't understand. Lena's face was red, tears and anger mixing. None of you understand. You're all single. You don't know what it's like to build a life with someone, to try to plan a future when there are obstacles everywhere. Obstacles you tried to remove by stealing, Tamsin said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She was still in the armchair, small and young, and watching everything with those careful eyes that missed nothing. That's what this was, Lena. Stealing. Trying to take something that wasn't yours by going around Dad instead of accepting his answer. We weren't stealing. We were trying to show him that we could manage the property, that we deserved it. By proving you could break into his accounts? That's not deserving, Lena. It's just wrong. Lena's face crumpled. You're all against me. We're not against you, I said. We're against what he did, what he convinced you was okay. He didn't convince me of anything. Didn't he? Iris leaned forward. Think about it. 6 weeks ago, you never talked about the apartment. You were happy with your house, planning your life. Then Nolan gets access to Dad's network, and suddenly you're texting about how unfair it is that Dad has 2 properties, how he's too old to manage them, how it's practical for you to take over. Those aren't your words, Lena. They're his. Stop trying to make this about him controlling me. I can think for myself. Then think. I kept my voice calm, steady. Think about the timing. Think about how the conversation changed. Think about why your husband needed remote access to my router, why he tried to get into my email, why he was probing my property management system at midnight. What explanation makes sense other than he was trying to take control? Maybe he was worried about you. Maybe he saw something that concerned him and wanted to check. At midnight? Without asking? Using 3 different IP addresses to hide what he was doing? Elliot's voice was firm, but not unkind. Ms. Reeves, I understand this is difficult, but the pattern of behavior here is clear. This wasn't concern. This was planning. And if your father hadn't noticed, if he hadn't documented everything, you might never have known what your husband was doing behind your back. Lena stared at him, then at me, then at the floor. Her shoulders sagged. I need to go, she said. Lena, wait. Mira reached for her. No, I can't. I need to talk to him. I need to hear his side. You just did, I said. He didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it either. Not really. You trapped him, backed him into a corner, made it impossible for him to explain. There's nothing to explain. The evidence speaks for itself. Your version of the evidence. Your interpretation. She grabbed her purse, headed for the door. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry you feel like you had to do this, but I can't stay here and pretend this is okay. Lena? The door opened. Closed. She was gone. The 4 of us sat in the silence she left behind. She'll come around, Mira said finally, once she has time to process. Maybe, I said. Or maybe Nolan's right. Maybe I just lost her. You didn't lose her, Iris said firmly. She's angry, hurt, confused, but she's not stupid. Eventually, she'll see what really happened here. And if she doesn't? Nobody had an answer for that. Elliot started packing up his folders. I'll draft that statement tonight. Have it ready for Nolan to sign Monday. If he refuses, we'll escalate. But my guess is he'll sign. He knows he's been caught. And then what? Tamsin asked. Then we monitor. Make sure he doesn't try anything else. Keep detailed records. If he violates the agreement, we have grounds for criminal charges. So this isn't over. It's never really over, Elliot said. But it's controlled. That's the best we can hope for. He left. Mira and Iris left shortly after, both hugging me at the door, both telling me I'd done the right thing. Tamsin lingered. Dad? She said. Are you okay? I will be, I said. I'm sorry this happened. Me too, sweetheart. She hugged me tight, then left. And I was alone again. I sat in the living room for a long time, staring at the router on the coffee table, the folders on the mantel, the empty chairs where my daughters had been. I'd won, I'd protected myself, I'd exposed the threat. So why did it feel like I'd lost something irreplaceable?